All right. So, with Brady getting super drunk and hammered, let's start our topics off today with Brady versus Mahomes. Adam, what do you think about that?
Yeah, I definitely think Patrick Mahomes can outdrink Tom Brady at this point in his career, and I think that's
I would hope so.
yeah. I think Tom, over 40 now, has lost an edge in the drinking department. Clearly, can't even walk after a couple of drinks. I think when Patrick Mahomes wins his next Super Bowl, he'll show that he can outdrink Tom Brady for sure.
With Brady and Mahomes, there's a lot of chatter and talk saying that Mahomes can't beat Brady because Brady beat Mahomes. That's impossible. It's not going to happen. You also have to think too. Mahomes is only 25. He's already won a Super Bowl. He has more than enough time to put up the stats and or have a chance to catch up to Brady. But if Brady wins another one or possibly two more Super Bowls, I don't think there's any way anyone's going to catch him in our lifetime.
Yeah, I think you're going to have that argument for a long time until Patrick Mahomes is 40 years old or older than Brady, and to see if he's still around. At this point, I think it's too early to tell if Patrick Mahomes is going to have just as good or a better career than Tom Brady. Tom Brady has proven that he's still doing it at this age, and that's really impressive. And you could argue that Tom Brady had not as good team as Patrick Mahomes in this Super Bowl, and Brady still came in and took care of business. So I think definitely for now, people will argue that, yeah, Patrick Mahomes cannot pass Brady as the greatest of all time because now they met on the biggest stage possible in football, and Mahomes did not live up to expectations, and Brady, if anything, went over expectations.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know, that's very true. I mean, I still feel like Mahomes will definitely, as of right now, I feel Mahomes will pass Brady. I am a huge Tom Brady
Wow,
fan.
really?
I wanted them to win. I wanted
Really?
Brady to win another one, but Patrick Mahomes, he has the better arm. He looks more like a like quarterback, like elite quarterback. Where Tom Brady, his biggest attribute to him being so good is his mind and his mentality. Like he'll just carve up a defense. He knows where to go with the ball all the time. Everyone always rips on Brady's deep ball. He can throw the deep ball, but it's not going to be as far as Mahomes. Brady isn't going to be zinging them in there anymore, kind of thing. Where those things get discussed all the time. And again, with the quarterback position, it is the teams that are built around them too. Like Brady has always had very good defenses in New England when he does go to the Super Bowls, but because their defense was normally in the top 10, in the top 5, normally when they do go to the Super Bowl, you get the lack of offensive product out there. So it's Brady getting everyone else ready on offense and Brady making things work so the defense can be better as well. So there's a
Well,
huge dynamic with that.
Well, I think if you're going to argue that Patrick Mahomes is more athletically gifted than Tom Brady, I don't think anybody would
Not
disagree
at
with
all.
you on
Yeah.
that. I think, I mean,
Tom
just
can't even get off a boat, much less scramble the way
right. Yeah.
that
So, I mean,
Mahomes
but
can.
for sure, Patrick Mahomes is more athletically gifted than Tom Brady's ever been in his entire career.
Yeah. Oh,
And,
without a doubt. Yeah. I
and,
agree.
but does that make him a better quarterback? I'm not sure at this point. I'm not. I really don't know because Patrick Mahomes, yeah, he has the look, he has the athletic ability, he has everything. He landed in a perfect situation. He has wide receivers. Tom Brady has done it for years without, having a perfect situation. You could argue maybe it was a perfect situation for him in New England, but half the time they had second-tier wide receivers out there, and he made them look like all-pro wide receivers. I mean, you look at a guy like Wes Welker even, and he looked like the best receiver in the game when he was on the Patriots, and then he goes to Denver and he looks average at best. So is that Tom Brady? Was that Belichick? If Tyreek Hill leaves in the next coming years, is he going to be as good without Patrick Mahomes? So these are just things that we haven't seen yet. So I can't sit here and say, one's better than the other, one's going to have a better career, because we haven't seen that yet. I think Patrick Mahomes has potential to end his career with better numbers. And, if he wins a bunch more Super Bowls, I think you'll have a lot of people arguing that he's a better quarterback or the greatest quarterback of all time. But he hasn't proven yet that he's there. I think he has potential, but I would have to see it for, another 20 years like Tom Brady did it to get to that standing with me.
Longevity without a doubt.
All right. So to wrap this up, let's get everyone's take. Who are you going to take for the GOAT? Are you going to take Mahomes or Brady? Adam?
Right now, because he's done it for so long, I'll go with Brady. But I'm giving Patrick Mahomes as the best chance to pass Brady out of any quarterback I've seen ever.
All right, nice. Austin, what's your take? You taking Brady or Mahomes on this?
I mean, it's two different questions. I agree with Adam. I don't think anyone's trying to say that Tom Brady has had and definitely currently does not have the athletic ability of Mahomes. I think Mahomes is revolutionizing the position. That being said, like game ages, I think Tom Brady beating him at 40 when he's 25, 25 is young, but it's kind of your prime. But you're in your 40s, you're past your prime. I think that did it. I think that sealed it. Mahomes would have to have a hell of a career to pass Brady. Even if he won, let's say he wins 8 Super Bowls somehow, which I don't think will happen. I still think that this win over a guy in your era, I think it does so much for you. I cannot. Yeah, I got to go Tom Brady. It's not even close. And I know Mahomes is young and things can change, but I don't think it's close. I think Brady's definitely better.
All right, so then we're all in agreement. It's definitely Brady over Mahomes, and only time will tell on who's actually will be the best quarterback of all time. So, with the talk of quarterbacks of Brady and Mahomes, let's just get right into the quarterback offseason carousel here. There's lots of names and rumors going out about quarterbacks. Where are they going? They staying? They leaving? What's happening? Adam, what have you heard about all this?
Well, I definitely still think Deshaun Watson is going to be moved at some point. I think if you listen to the Texans, they keep saying that they're going to find a way to trade him or keep him. But I just think he's too unhappy there. He's going to get moved. And I'm thinking more than likely it's going to be either the Jets or the Panthers at this point. Obviously, Stafford got moved for, I think, way too much capital to the Rams. Goff going there. So I don't know if that means the Lions are now, going to get out of the quarterback conversation if they're okay with having Goff. But other quarterbacks that are definitely, looking like they are likely to get moved this offseason are Carson Wentz, Jimmy Garoppolo, Teddy Bridgewater, Derek Carr, Darnold, possibly even Matt Ryan or Drew Lock. And it's just kind of time will tell where those guys are going to get moved to or if they will get moved at all. Out of those guys, which ones would you like the Bears to be going after?
Oh, man.
Well, not Darnold, because I'm still not even sure if it's Darnold or Darnold. And as a casual-ass Bears fan, I don't want to have to deal with that pronunciation issue. But honestly, the sleeper one, I'd love to see Derek Carr in Chicago. I'm a super casual, but I've had Derek Carr in fantasy football and kept an eye on him. Like, I don't know, man. I think that's one of those guys playing on a not-so-great team that you put that guy in a different situation with a good defense. I think that could be a cheap way to really bolster the offense. I don't know. I don't think it's going to be as hard to get him as it would be to get a Deshaun Watson, who obviously I think we all want.
Yeah, I totally agree with agree with that one, Austin. I would love to have Deshaun Watson, but I think the price tag for him is going to be too much for the Bears, and we shouldn't give all that away for that. My top two actually would be Derek Carr and Sam Darnold. I think Sam Darnold is way better than how he has played with the Jets. That whole organization is so dysfunctional. They have not given him any opportunity to actually grow as a quarterback or anything. They've just traded away offensive talent and just given stuff away. So it's really hard to, like, come in as a rookie in that type of situation and be expected to, like, uplift an entire team.
Absolutely.
I do like Derek Carr as well. For some reason, I just feel like Derek Carr is kind of just like a Bears quarterback. I don't know why. I can't explain it. But, like, he just seems like a Bears quarterback to me that could do well with that defense. We definitely have an up-and-coming tight end. If we're to keep Allen Robinson, I think Derek Carr would work pretty good, pretty well with us. I would not mind getting Derek Carr for the quarterbacks as well.
I think I'm pretty much on the same page then with you, Rich. I think out of all the names that have been thrown around, Derek Carr seems to fit, the type of guy the Bears would be looking for. He's not like a run-first quarterback, but he's still mobile. Mm-hmm. He's usually a decent decision maker, and he has the arm talent. Now, I guess the question with him is sometimes just consistency. But the Bears are used to having a very inconsistent quarterback. So I think anything, Derek Carr is an upgrade to what we've had for quite a while. And I think Sam Darnold is one of the biggest question marks that we could go for. And I do like that move still if we can get him for a decent price. I know they were saying the asking price might be upwards of a first round and a second round, or a first round and a third. I don't know if I'd give away that much for him, but if we can, give away a first round and get like a fourth back with Darnold or something like that, I think that price tag would be worth it. And now in the way of Derek Carr, I've been hearing that the price tag for him is possibly 2 first rounds plus a player. I don't know on Derek Carr if that's enough, just because of those question marks I have with his consistency. I would be okay, giving away a first round and maybe like a future, pick or a swap, or maybe we give away 2 first round picks, but we get a second or a third back, something of that nature. But yeah, I think the asking price right now for quarterbacks is really high, partially because of how much Stafford got in return. I mean, I even heard on Carson Wentz, which is a guy that's been pretty much run out of town in Philadelphia, that the asking price for him is 2 first round picks, and they're not even playing him at this point. I think that would be way too steep for a guy like Carson Wentz. And he's been linked to the Bears for quite a while now because Philadelphia, runs a similar style offense as what Nagy runs. I don't like that move as much unless we can give up very little to get Carson Wentz. But I keep hearing that the Bears are one of the top teams in the running for Carson Wentz.
That one makes no sense to me with Carson Wentz because, like, the couple of years that he was good, that offensive line was playing their best. All the receivers, everything was gelling, everything was working. When everything was, like, not working well, he still did good. I'm not saying he did, like, awful, but, like, coming to the Bears, our offensive line isn't the greatest. And then if we have to give up that much for him, that means we're probably not going to end up keeping Allen Robinson, or we're not going to, be able to put too much around him because we have to give so much up for him. Where I feel at this point in his career, he definitely needs a change. But, he also seems like a guy that needs certain things around him to, be really good.
Right.
It's
And I
just
think
injury
I would
problems, too.
I would love to see him go to a team like the Colts who have Frank Reich. And I think that was the last time Carson Wentz was a really good quarterback, was when those two partnered up. And obviously the Colts are looking for a quarterback as well. So I would like to see that over the Bears, unless we can get him for a lot cheaper than the asking price. Like, again, like, since the Bears don't draft well in the first round, I'm okay giving up a first round pick for him, but I would like to see, get some return in capital, like a future third or a future fourth or something like that, just because I feel like we pick better in those rounds anyway.
I totally agree. Bears do so much better in the later rounds. I feel giving up our first round pick for an established quarterback does wonders, because the Bears will somehow find a way to F up that 20th pick or whatever pick we have. They'll find a way to totally screw that pick. So I'd rather get a known player and quarterback for a first round and not give up those later rounds where we have done so well in.
And the other name that I just want to cover briefly, because I just really don't see it happening, that people have been throwing out there, is apparently Russell Wilson has shown some unhappiness with Seattle the past year or so. I think he took to Twitter or something to, say something unhappy, and people were like, oh, well, there's where the Bears need to go, get a guy like Russell Wilson. What do you think about that, Rich?
First off, Russell Wilson's not going anywhere.
I agree.
He's going to be in Seattle. This is just media trying to do whatever. And you also have to think, too, of who Russell Wilson's actually married to as well. That is something I feel that got thrown out there to kind of start a little media stuff. Russell Wilson hasn't been talked about as being a great quarterback since he went on kind of that decline halfway through the season and didn't play as well as the first half. So I feel that's kind of, it's still a media-driven league. I feel that tweet, that little bit, there's so much talk about quarterback that just gets you talking more about Russell Wilson. There's no way they're going to, no matter how unhappy he might be, Seattle Pete Carroll ain't going to let him leave. Pete Carroll's a good enough coach to, iron whatever issues out with Russell Wilson. I just find that super hilarious and think it's a bunch of bullcrap.
Yeah. Russell Wilson
Rich, it's your podcast. You can say shit if you want, man. You paid come on.
Russell Wilson.
Bullshit.
Edit that in if you want.
Russell Wilson still made the Pro Bowl, though, didn't he?
I believe so. I think he should have made the Pro Bowl.
He absolutely made the Pro Bowl. He was an MVP
super
candidate.
Well and amazing.
Yeah.
He just stumbled down the stretch.
Well, that's what I was going to say, Austin.
He was a lot of people's MVP. I saw blog posts as a casual fan seeing that constantly.
Yeah, I was going to say was early, the first half of the season, he was leading, I think, for MVP, or he was always in that conversation with, obviously, Aaron Rodgers and Patrick Mahomes. But, yeah, I think he definitely trailed off as the season went on, which is interesting because early on their defense was awful, and Russell Wilson was really the only reason that they were winning games. And then as the season went on, it seemed like Russell Wilson and the offense struggled, and then all of a sudden the defense learned how to play. So I thought that was really interesting. But yeah, as we're talking about Pro Bowl, is there anybody that didn't make the Pro Bowl that you guys think probably should have been in there?
Oh my God. This is one thing that drives me nuts with the common fan of the Pro Bowl snub. Let's just vote for the big name guy that we're told is doing amazing, and let's not reward the players that are playing really well, putting up better numbers, leading their team to wins, leading that entire unit that they have to be playing really well. Let's snub those guys, because God forbid if Tom Brady ain't in there, oh man, NFL's not going to be happy. So my biggest snub, I think, this year was Devin White, the the linebacker for Tampa Bay. I think he was the heart and soul of that defense. He kept everyone in position. He's calling the plays all the time. That guy is a sideline guy. He is a cover guy as well. Even in the Super Bowl, he was the one who was constantly covering Travis Kelce in coverage or man-to-man. And from that Super Bowl, Kelce didn't put up a lot of numbers. And that's, I don't know, that's pretty good to say.
Yeah,
so
I
that's
think
my biggest snub.
I think throughout the season, I mean, because Tampa Bay had so many primetime games, I felt like I watched more Tampa Bay games than like almost every other team in the league. And every time I was, had it on, you heard Devin White on almost every play. It seemed like he was in on every tackle. He was making plays in the backfield. He was covering receivers downfield. Yeah, he was on the tight end a lot, running sideline to sideline. I felt like he did pretty much everything for that defense. I do not know how he did not make the Pro Bowl. And then they have, Bobby Wagner made the Pro Bowl. And I'm not arguing, that Bobby Wagner isn't a great player. I think he's one of the best linebackers of all time. But I think he declined this season, and Seattle's defense didn't look great. So I think that's what you were kind of alluding to a little bit, is just like they threw a big name in there, Bobby Wagner, and missed a guy like Devin White.
Yeah, I totally 100% agree with that. And then let's see.
So that's your defensive pick for a Pro Bowl snub. Who would you say on offense they kind of missed?
On offense, oh my God, definitely James Robinson. I cannot believe he did not make the Pro Bowl as a rookie. He was the only offensive player on the Jags. The Jags offense was god awful, and this guy came in and pretty much rushed for over 100 yards a game or close to it. On like, everyone knew he's getting the ball, they're giving the ball to him, and
Right.
he still put up numbers with 8 men in the box. Like,
Yeah,
Jags don't have a quarterback. Like,
I think he actually almost averaged like almost 5 yards a carry too, which is insane for, a team that struggled so much on offense. And they seemed like when they're struggling, they just kept handing them the ball. So yeah, you had teams that were stacking the box against him, and he was still almost averaging, I think, 5 yards a carry, which is just ridiculous.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a casual, and that dude kicked my ass in fantasy football. Like, he lit me up when I played against him. I don't even remember what week it was, but like, I mean,
And you
I'm
bring
not
up
a huge fan of guys getting in there because of stats, but I mean, shit, when you're the whole offense for a team, like Rich was saying, I think you deserve to get it. You're not going to get any wins or a shot at a Super Bowl or even really a good playoff run. I mean, you got to at least be rewarded for something, for holding it down and having a good attitude and, showing up to those games knowing you're not going to win many and just putting the team on your back as best you can.
And I think the funny thing is, bringing up fantasy football, I drafted Josh Jacobs really early as a running back because I thought he was going to have such a good year because of how much the Raiders run the ball. But I think James Robinson put up by far better numbers than Jacobs. Jacobs didn't seem to do a whole lot for me in fantasy, and I think Jacobs made the Pro Bowl and Robinson did not, and that kind of baffles me.
Yeah, he's in there. It's Derrick Henry, Chubb, and then Josh Jacobs is running back 3 on this.
And I don't think anyone could argue about Derrick Henry. I mean, the guy won the MVP, or he was an MVP.
I had Derrick Henry. That was the only good decision I made in fantasy football this year. He was fantastic as a kid. 9th overall. What a steal.
I think another offensive player that I think probably should have been in there is Calvin Ridley. Julio Jones missed half the year with various injuries, suspensions, or whatever, and he
didn't make it though. In their defense, that's a guy that I'm sort of surprised to not see on here because, like Bobby Wagner, that's a household name, a guy you just expect to be on there based on past performance. But I gotta say they did a good job of not picking him over some of these other wide receivers that were incredible. There's some younger guys on here. Metcalf made it; he absolutely deserved it. Deandre Hopkins, I think, is the best receiver in the league. He made it.
I would say that's
Devontae
true.
Adams was phenomenal, and every bit as good as DeAndre Hopkins was, and he made it as well. So I don't think you could pick three better receivers there. Yeah, it's good to see.
Yeah, I mean that's true. I think it's hard. In the NFC. I think so many receivers stepped up this year, and especially with DeAndre Hopkins coming to the NFC from where he sat in the AFC. It's hard to pick only what do they take 5 receivers or something like that for the Pro Bowl, but I think Calvin Ridley really held down that offense. So
according to this list, they only take 3 receivers, and that's a problem in and of itself, in my opinion, because I agree with the wide receiver talent in the league right now is so good. Or, oh, no, I'm sorry. They take 4, and Justin Jefferson was the 4th. My fault.
Oh, yeah, well, he probably deserves it as well.
And then, and then across the board, moving over to the AFC, you got Tyreek Hill, Stephon Diggs, Keenan Allen, A.J. Brown, Titans. He played pretty good. I don't know him very well, but I had Keenan Allen. He played great in fantasy football.
Keenan Allen was just like a reception magnet.
I had Diggs as well, another stat sheet stuffer. He had a breakout season. A lot of people slept on him. I got him late in the draft, and he was, I think, at one point leading all wide receivers
in yards and catches. Yeah, I picked him up in all 3 of my leagues because he was going in like the 4th, 5th round, and I was like, yeah, Diggs on that offense is going to light it up. So, yeah, that was good to see.
Yeah, definitely. Well, I mean, we've talked a ton of football. I promised I'd cut you off if things got out of control. Let's jump in a little 2-minute drill here. I thought of some questions, and a lot of the time for self-reflection that I've had while you guys were doing your segments. First up, who wins a lightweight chug-off, Aaron Rodgers or Tom Brady?
Oh, man. I would have to go with Tom Brady just because all the parades that he's been to after winning so many Super Bowls. He looked like a lightweight out there, but yeah, definitely Tom Brady. I saw Aaron Rodgers try to chug at a Bucks game once, and he couldn't even finish a beer.
That's definitely what I was referencing, so I'm glad you picked up on that. I mean, between Tom Brady not being able to get off a boat, at least that's from tequila, allegedly. Aaron Rodgers can't even chug a beer. If Aaron Rodgers did a shot of tequila, I don't know. I think Tom Brady can drink more than Aaron Rodgers. Aaron Rodgers that was one of the most disappointing things I've ever seen. And of course, we're Bears fans, but like, bro, you play for Wisconsin. Packers fans should have been embarrassed by that. That is one of the beer capitals of the country. Agree. Dude couldn't chug a beer. Sad, really sad. I think Aaron Rodgers' wife could probably out-chug him, honestly.
Oh, Aaron Rodgers is not married, but he is dating.
Oh, my bad.
He's dating that
I thought
Shania.
He was
no, he's engaged now. But I think that chick, she's from like the what is it, the one movie where it's like they break into factions and shit. Rich, help me out on that.
Every movie.
First off, I could care less about who Aaron Rodgers is fucking dating. I'd rather keep the topic on. Let's do the chug off between Tom Brady and Aaron Rodgers. I'm also going to go with Brady. Did see Aaron Rodgers pretty much be a bitch chugging that beer at the Bucks game. But I feel Aaron Rodgers also won a lot of fans back with drinking by sitting in the back of the pickup truck with that Bud Light case. So Aaron Rodgers is ready to drink. I feel like if he does do a chug off again,
I didn't see that, but there's no way.
I feel a little bit better, but at the same time,
that was a publicity stunt. All those cans were empty from the beginning. He was being a fucking trash. He was being a trash man. He was picking up those cans from other people drinking them in Wisconsin. I think that's more likely.
All right, I just realized I'm not even timing this 2-minute drill because now we're just off on a tangent about drinking. So I totally botched this segment.
Man, I got one playoff in the 2-minute drill. I probably did not score unless it was fucking Hail Mary.
My bad. I was throwing you the ball, and I was completely blowing it. So
chug the beer fast enough, you could always win.
That is true. Rich. Anyway, moving on. You guys want to? Speaking of Pro Bowl snubs, you guys want to talk some snubs in other sports? I mean, I think we touched on something that I've been thinking about with the NBA All-Star game coming up. How do you pick All-Stars and Pro Bowl players in some of the 4 major sports? It's tough. I mean, there's guys who are putting up false, statistics on a team. is really bad. They're taking a lot of shots, or they're handling the ball or puck or whatever the sport may be. They're controlling the flow of the game offensively more than they should be if they were on a team that had a chance to win. How do you gauge that? How do you decide who misses? There's so many talented players in these leagues. I'm kind of interested in you guys weighing in on that. Are stats more important or team success more important?
I'm going to go with it's definitely going to be like a combination of both. But one thing you kind of always hear is kind of like, what is it? It's the eye test. You could tell, like, when you watch a sport and you really watch a sport all the time, you can kind of tell who's actually doing really good and whose numbers are inflated because they're the only person handling the ball, or they're the only person that's taking the shots, or, they're not really being like watched as much. They're getting more of the one-on-one kind of like coverage and things. So they're just eating up those stats. So they're benefiting from like other players as well. So I don't know, as like a fan of sports and watching sports like pretty much almost my whole life, like you can just kind of tell sometimes like who's actually really good and whose numbers are just inflated off of like either the system or other aspects of what's going on in the offense or defense.
I agree completely. And I mean, I'm obviously a big basketball fan. I've been watching that my whole life. And that is the epitome of a sport that has been compartmentalized on social media. It's highlights, quick cut statistics that don't show the whole story. And you hear things like, Bradley Beal getting snubbed last year. It's quite possible he gets snubbed again this year. He's leading the league in scoring with 33 points a game, but he's shooting the ball 25 times a game. I know you guys aren't basketball fans, but to put that in perspective, he's shooting it like 5 or 6 more times a game than some of the top scorers on some teams that are, not floundering at the bottom of the standings and struggling to win games. His team is, I believe, dead last. The Wizards are dead last in defense.
Yes, they
defensive
are.
ranking. So you look at a guy like that and you go, how could you not have the leading scorer in the All-Star game? I think for the first time, maybe 10 years ago, that would be absurd to say. But with the way scoring is so inflated and the pace of play is really picked up and teams are just not playing defense and operating at these absurd paces that like the Brooklyn Nets and the Wizards are playing at, for Bradley Beal to miss the All-Star game, I mean, that team has experienced a lot of injuries and, props to him for scoring the ball and trying to salvage it. But dude's got to get off that team. That I don't think he's an all-star. I don't think he's contributed enough. And I think you could take guys off other teams that aren't scoring as well and put them on a bad team, and I think you'll see them have an all-star stat line. You look at a guy like Jeremy Grant, who played on the Nuggets last year, averaged about 12 points a game. They went to the Western Conference Finals. He goes to Detroit. He's averaging like 24 points a game, but that team's terrible. Is that guy an all-star? I really don't think so. So I don't know. I mean, like Rich said, there's definitely a balance to it, but I tend to lean more towards team success. I think there are guys that sacrifice for the good of their team, and those guys should be rewarded. Whereas, guys that are the best on a bad team, that's tough. I know you're not competing, but, maybe consider changing your game, being a better leader in the locker room and trying to elevate those around you, or, getting the hell out. That's kind of my take.
I would say definitely numbers matter, but so does, your team play and winning games. I would say for me, if you're looking at making an all-star game or a Pro Bowl, I would say the numbers matter more than the wins, only because, like sometimes it's not the person's fault that they're on a bad team. You could put the best player in any sport on a bad team and he'd put up numbers still, and I don't think that's anything against that player. I think sometimes teams just underperform, and it's not necessarily that player's fault. If you're looking at voting someone like an MVP, I think that's where team wins and stuff like that come more into play. Because when you're voting for an MVP, this is the most valuable player. Like, in value in sports is winning games. So I think if you're voting for an MVP, you have to be a winner and you have to win games. But I think for a Pro Bowl or an all-star game, I think the singular stats of a player kind of matter more. I mean, I look at like a guy like Zach LaVine, who's been on the Bulls obviously the past couple of seasons, and he's been very good, and the Bulls have not been very good.
Night.
What was that?
He had 46 last night, but
Right.
against
Yeah,
the Pelicans
he
last
looked
night.
very good. And that's, I mean, he's had multiple 40-point games since coming to the Bulls. He's had, I think, like they said, like the third or fourth most 30-point games since he's been on the Bulls. So he's looked good, and he's yet to make an All-Star game. And I think that's because the Bulls as a team have underperformed, but I don't think that's a knock on Zach LaVine. I think Zach LaVine definitely deserves to be in the All-Star game. And I think he's succeeded despite having nobody around him. I think in basketball, sometimes it's easier to succeed if you have more talent around you because you're not the first guy that's guarded. You don't have, like, you know, if I was on the Lakers and I'm moderate in talent, then nobody's guarding me. And I have clear shots all game. And I think if you put that guy on another team that doesn't have those all-star players, he's not going to perform because they don't have that, you know, that thing that's taking the attention away from him. I think basketball.
What about a player putting up pretty good points on the bench? You know, time flies. It's been a while, but there was a point in time where James Harden was coming off the bench. The Thunder were in the finals, and then, you know, that guy leaves and he puts up 25 points a game immediately the next season on the Rockets, who were a terrible team at the time. I mean, not everybody has that incredible potential, but you see it with, you know, Jeremy Grant this year. There are guys that are sacrificing for the good of the team, and all they really need to do well is get shots. You know, Chris Boucher on the Raptors, if I'm pronouncing that correctly, got him in fantasy. He's coming off the bench, but, you know, he's getting more shot opportunities, and he's having a breakout season. Christian Wood in Houston, a guy who's a most improved player candidate. James Harden gets shipped out of there, and he's a starting caliber center now. He really turned it on late in the year last year in Detroit. Stupid of them to let him go. But you know, that's a guy who, if that team was doing better, is an all-star caliber player. But because they're not, to me, he's not an all-star player, despite putting up pretty nice.
I think for me, the most important stat line in basketball is, well, for one, I'm a big defensive guy. So I know the league has kind of tended to go away from that. You know, they're giving the benefit of the doubt to the offense. It's become a shoot first league. You don't see as many people drive in the lane, and, you know, offensive rebounds.
Questions later.
teams are getting smaller, but like in general, I think defense is important to me when trying to make a Pro Bowl. That's why I think like Kawhi Leonard always deserves to be in there, because he doesn't just put off offensive numbers, he has defensive numbers. But I think next to defense, the most important thing to me is just shooting percentage and efficiency, because you can have 40 points in a game, but if you shot it 40 times and your percentage is extremely low, then I don't think you played well. And I think if you shot the ball well and you're shooting over 50% or whatever for the game, then you had a really good game. But if you shot it 20%, but you still got your 30 points, then you didn't really help the team. And therefore, I don't think that is as deserving of getting in.
No doubt. And I know you guys aren't huge hockey people, but I see that in watching, hockey versus looking at the stats. There's definitely been those, defensemen who are the offensive caliber defensemen that maybe they have some flashy assist and goal numbers, maybe even a nice plus minus because they're camping out on the point on a power play unit somewhere and racking up points. But are those guys actually good at what the position requires you to do, which is to defend, which is to stop the other team? I think there's guys that are equally deserving that maybe rack up numbers in the hits department, or maybe they don't score much, but they have nice assist numbers and they're more traditional defensemen. I think that's another sport where that's got to be so tough if you're selecting that all-star team, what you prioritize.
Right. I think the nice thing about hockey is they have all those awards, and at least you get your recognition somehow. They have the best defenseman award. They have, the Conn Smythe trophy. You have the Vezina trophy.
Your Rocket trophy. I'm botching that so hard, but leading the league in goals, you get a trophy for that.
Right.
So if you're the league's leading goal scorer and your team's terrible, at least you can get that trophy, something to
Right.
play for. So
The
no, you're right.
best.
I'd like to see some other sports incorporate that, because then I think the All-Star snubs probably hit those guys a lot less because there's an opportunity to win an individual award.
Right. So I think
Warren,
that's something that hockey does really well.
I
Um,
agree.
but you brought up Bradley Beal, and that's a really interesting name to me because I do see him making the All-Star game just because he's leading the league in points. I would be surprised if he didn't make the All-Star game, and I don't know if I'd argue if he deserves to be in there or not. Obviously, at the shooting guard position in the East, it's so deep this year with now James Harden moving over, and you got
Yeah.
you got a lot of talent there. But do you think Bradley Beal will end this season playing where he is now?
You know, that's a great question. I mean, he's obviously the quintessential offensive player in the modern NBA. This is a guy who can shoot the three at an incredible level, can score from all over the court. He's not as athletic as some of the other guards in the league, but he's got a deceptive athleticism around the rim as well.
He's not a
And with
terrible defender
those
either.
statistics, I don't know that his defense is great, but it's better than advertised. I
I
will
will
say that.
say, yeah, I would
Underrated.
say he's not a top tier
Yeah.
defender, but it's not bad. He's not a
No,
bad
I don't.
defender.
I agree. I don't think he's a liability on defense. I think that's a guy that could get moved to a contending team, and you look at that team and you go, I don't think they miss a beat putting that guy in there. So I'm trying to think of some destinations where he'd work well. Golden State, honestly, when you got Kelly Oubre out there starting the season shooting, I think honestly close to single-digit percentage from the three-point line in the first couple of weeks of the season. You look at someone like Bradley Beal. They've got James Wiseman, who's a second overall pick, playing center for them. That's a piece that Washington might be interested in. Packaging that with some other assets like maybe Andrew Wiggins, who, speaking of defense, has really turned it up on the defensive end. Still not a knockdown shooter, but somebody that can come in and be a top three player on a young developing team. You got James Wiseman, whose ceiling is very high as a rookie. If you're able to package those two guys and maybe some other assets, maybe some later round picks, Bradley Beal fits perfect in Golden State, especially buying time for Klay Thompson to come back. I think even if Klay returns, you can play those guys alongside each other because Klay's good enough on defense to play small forward, and he would have an incredible floor spacing ability with those three guys who can shoot the ball, Steph, Klay, and Bradley Beal, if he's able to get over there.
So with Bradley Beal, since he is like the Wizards, is he going to be willing? Is he going to be willing to not put up those numbers to be playing on a better team? Because I know in basketball that tends to be an issue with some of the bigger name players when they're putting up these numbers and they think that they're the best player, and then they go somewhere else and now their minutes are cut. They're not shooting as much as they want. Is he a player where is that really going to work? Is he going to be okay taking that kind of cut off of his time, not taking as many shots? Or is he more of a team guy?
Well, that's a great question. I think I think there's two things that you can the two angles you can kind of look at that at. I mean, you look at the Warriors, it wasn't too long ago, but I think it's already out of our minds as basketball fans or casual basketball fans because it was so boring to watch. But there was a point in time where Kevin Durant came there and we asked ourselves the same questions. Would he be able to sacrifice shots? Would he be able to make that work? And when you look at the statistics, I think I heard a stat the other day that Klay Thompson, a lot of people wondered if he could take the back seat when Durant came there. He still led the team in shots because I think like Adam was touching on earlier in basketball, sometimes if you're got a good enough coach and a good enough overall culture to where you're moving the ball and you're playing unselfishly, sometimes the third option on the team that people think is going to be the third option on a team can end up leading the team in shots because they leave that person open. And if the team's unselfish enough, they'll find him. So someone like Bradley Beal, who's such a great shooter, arguably a better shooter from behind the arc than Kevin Durant, I can easily anticipate scenarios where even if he's not involved in creating a play for others and he's kind of just standing off in the corner, as you see far too often in the NBA these days. That's a guy who's you can throw him the ball if he's open in the corner every single time, and he's got a great chance to make it. He's a great pure shooter. So I don't know that he would really have to sacrifice that many shots. And I think at this point, the poor guy's mental health is probably in such a bad place. He signed a huge extension in Washington. He seems to be regretting it immediately. I don't think he would have to take a step back at all. But the other angle of looking at it is, he had a quote earlier, after a really rough loss where I don't know, we'd have to play the audio and I'll send it to you guys, but his tone and the way he phrased it, I feel like he doesn't really, he's 27 years old, but I'm not sure if maybe he's mature enough to play on the Warriors, a team that's won some championships, that's kind of a selfless, egoless team. He had some comments that sort of rubbed me the wrong way. I mean, he kind of implied that his role on that team is to score at will, and that if the defense is playing bad, he kind of detached himself from any blame or responsibility, which you don't like to see from the best player on a team. You like them to take some blame for the defensive end of the floor, even though we all know Bradley Beal's there to score primarily, but still got to play defense. And as the best player on the team, when your team's playing bad on defense, a good leader will say that, hey, that's on me too. And if he's not going to do that, I think to Rich's point, that's maybe the other angle of looking at it, that's a red flag. That's a big red flag.
So you mentioned Durant, who I still think is one of the best players in the NBA, and obviously he's playing along Kyrie Irving for now. Yeah. Do you think Kyrie Irving will end this year playing with the Brooklyn Nets?
Kyrie Irving it's a great segue there, because Kyrie Irving is one of the most mentally unstable players in the league. Very confusing guy to figure out, very intelligent guy. When he's not saying the earth is flat, at least. But, I think that's an interesting question. I think for now they're making it work. I think when things are good, it's really fun over there in Brooklyn. They all seem to enjoy sharing the role. They're playing at such a fast pace with, kind of that run and gun, 8 seconds or less Suns coaching staff that they kind of put together, that, this is a team where at best it can work. There's enough shots for all those guys there. There's enough offensive opportunity. There's a culture in the NBA of resting on back-to-backs, of load management, to where, you'll see games like the other night where James Harden was out there as the only star on the team and, kind of able to pad his stats and his shot attempts that way. So I don't know. I don't know that you see Kyrie Irving move. I think earlier in the season when he was not focused mentally, I think bringing Harden in may have, at least for now, done the opposite. I think that's made Kyrie Irving lock in, knowing that, this team can win a championship, and it's been a while since he's been able to do that.
Yeah, for me, I would say right after they trade for Harden, and he's not even playing, because he has his own stuff going on, whatever that may be. Immediately, I thought, he's going to be traded.
Same.
There's no way that he's staying on that team. They got Harden to pick up for, that offense, and I thought they were shipping him out of there. But yeah, now it seems like they've kind of put it together, and now like they're trying to become that team to beat in the East. They keep losing to bad teams and then beating good teams, which is confusing.
Because they don't defend. They like to play small ball so that all those guys can get shots. And I think you hit the nail on the head, Adam. That's what can go wrong, is if, there's a balance to playing at that insane pace and to chucking all those shots. You have to be good enough on defense to win the games, because that's when things aren't good and the arguments in the locker room start. So they got to keep winning games.
Yeah, but at this point, I do kind of see him finishing at least this season there. And if they make a run for a championship or something, maybe he stays longer, or we'll have to see as the season goes on. But I think right now he sees this as his opportunity to compete for a championship right now. And I think he's going to kind of lock in and focus a little bit more. And I think he stays there.
I agree. I think we won't see that till the playoffs. The narrative can flip in an instant when you see the results of how a team performs in the playoffs, especially in this, crowdless COVID era that we're in, where some weird things are happening, like the Nuggets going deep last year, which was unexpected. That level of parity in basketball we saw last year, we haven't seen in a while. So we could see it again this year with no crowds and not really any home court advantage. We could see some upsets and stuff. And if the Nets are a higher seed and they bow out anywhere before the East Finals, in my opinion, I think Kyrie Irving's the guy to go. I think that's the guy they would move. I think you're spot on that. They just brought in Harden. I don't think they would give up on him that quickly. And Kevin Durant coming off that injury looks better than ever. So I think Kyrie Irving with his, lack of focus and dedication to the game, that would be the scapegoat, unfortunately. So I think Kyrie knows that. And I think that's why he snapped into gear a little bit here.
Are there any other big names that you can see moving, or maybe some names that you would like to see moved, even if it's not likely?
In terms of trade deadline stuff this year, I mean, when you look at the standings, we're still early on in the season. You'd have to ask me that question in a few weeks, but don't know. Those are the big ones. I think it's pretty clearly articulated, that who the contenders are. We might see some upsets. We normally don't, but again, last year we were a bit surprised by some teams, including the Nuggets. I think the one team people are talking about maybe making a move is the Miami Heat, just because they got off to a slow start. But what a lot of people don't realize is they got bit by the COVID bug really hard. They've had a lot of injuries. They have a lot of guys missing games. And, we look down in the standings and it seems like a lot of games, but there's still a ton of games left to play. I think they keep that unit together. They went all the way to the finals last year. There's so many young players on that team. I don't see them making a move. I don't see many teams, trying to make a move, especially because I think the nice thing about the NBA is it's kind of a family, and I think people understand the risk of making a trade for a player during a pandemic. I think you're going to see less trades at the deadline this year as a result of that, because there's a collective urgency to keep the season going. And if you've got players that are, changing teams and changing hands and going in for physicals, you're more likely to see them be ruled out or the trade to be nullified. So I think teams are gonna kind of wait through the offseason this year. I don't know that there'll be a lot of big moves, but we'll see.
Yeah, I agree. I don't see any real big names being moved. It seemed like the Knicks were really trying to do something, and they reacquired Derrick Rose, which was kind of an interesting move in my opinion. But I don't really see a whole big
coach and former player pairing.
Right.
Making a little bit of a surge. A lot of people think they might be able to get into the playoffs. I think making a trade is a good move, but then that's a classic Thibodeau head scratcher to go get an aging point guard.
Sure.
Bring them in and take away minutes from some of the younger players that have shown some promise. So
yeah, I mean the Knicks.
We'll see.
I think the Knicks. Some people have been surprised by them this year. I think a lot of people, picked them to be one of the worst teams in the league, and they're hanging in there. And I think right now, if the season again, it's early, but I think if the season ends right now, they're in, and that was surprising to me.
Yeah, I haven't looked at the standings in the past few days. The East is close, and what I did notice in looking at it is the middle of the pack and down in the East are all those teams are under 500. Boston's just one game above 500 in fourth, and then fifth you got the Raptors at 12 and 13. You look down at teams like the Knicks 11 and 15, Heat 10 and 14, even our Bulls 10 and 14. It's wide open. You've got that many below 500 teams in the East. It's pretty clear who the top dogs are. Maybe the top 3 or 4 teams in the Celtics, Nets, Bucks, and Sixers, but the rest of it's wide open.
I have high hopes.
I don't think anyone's given up in packaging trades or starting to tank yet in the East, because it's wide open. If you're not Washington or Detroit, maybe Orlando, I don't think you're giving up at all just yet.
I have high hopes that the Bulls will grab that 7th or 8th seed this year. I think if they can stay healthy, which they have not proven they can do, I think they've played like 2 games with their designated starting 5. But I think if they can get healthy and stay healthy, I think they make a push for at least that 7th or 8th seed. They've impressed me in some games this year. In other games, they've found ways to blow it. But I think they just, Billy Donovan has really kind of turned some things around, I think, for that team.
I think so, too. I think, if you were to look just at their record and not see the context that I kind of just outlined, and that, a lot of teams are below 500 in the East, but there's, 4 or 5 playoff spots of teams below 500 that are in the playoff picture. That 10 and 14 record doesn't look much better than last year, but I agree with you. I think Billy Donovan has done a great job turning this team around. The player who's really impressed me lately, who I just scooped up in fantasy basketball, is Thaddeus Young, coming off the bench, a veteran guy who's been in the league for quite a while now, and he's passing the ball better than I ever knew he was capable of.
Yeah,
Playing defense at a high level, really stuffing the stat sheet across the board. And
he's
I was
been
watching him the
one.
other
He's
night.
been one something away from a triple double, I think, in like 5 games this year. It's
Yeah,
1 assist, 1
off the
rebound, or 1
bench. Yeah.
point, like a bunch of times.
Yeah, it's pretty impressive. And triple doubles are an inflated stat, but he's playing defense at a high level too, coming off the bench as well. So he's got some guys buying into some bizarre roles that you might think egos would get in the way of making it work. But Thaddeus Young is a perfect example of a guy making it work. Kobe White and Zach both scored over 30 last night. I used to think that backcourt couldn't work because neither of them are really pass first players, but when they're hot, that's working as well. The offense looks good.
And Kobe's gotten better at his assists and really dishing the ball. He still makes like 1 or 2 bad passes a game, which he's got to clean up, but he's been a lot better at passing the ball. Crazy stat line from last night. They said that in NBA history, there's never been 2 players on the same team in one game make 8 threes or more.
Yeah,
I don't know how
the game has changed.
How have the Warriors never done that though with Klay and Steph?
It's a good point. That's funny that's never happened. They had to have been close.
Yeah.
I'd be interested to see if ESPN or somebody goes into a segment seeing how close they were. It is sort of a bizarre number to look at. 8. It's not a round number like 10 or 5 that we also think of as like a quantity that we'd look at. It's a bit of a bizarre stat, but by the same token, yeah, both of those guys have hit double-digit threes in games. I believe they've both held the three-pointers made in one game record. They're, I think, in everyone's eyes, the 2 best shooters of all time, if not 2 of the top 3 shooters of all time, Steph being the best, I think, undisputedly at this point. It is surprising. So it's pretty cool to see from the Bulls. They're, I think they fell in the habit in the past of playing an outdated style of basketball as much as I love Tom Thibodeau. But this is a three-point shooting modern 2020s basketball team, and I think the ceiling is the roof, as Michael Jordan so eloquently said a while back.
All right, well, I think it's time to wrap this up, but before we go, we have 2 minute buzzer beater with Austin. So I'm just going to start firing questions at you. You have 2 minutes to get through all the questions, and if you do, you get absolutely nothing for it, but we'll be in.
A beer. Yeah. Austin gets a beer.
Okay.
Oh my God, I would love a beer. Rich, it's good to hear you. How you been?
Apparently, Austin goes to buy his own beer then if he gets through this in 2 minutes. Ooh. So,
are you? Cold. I might botch this on purpose. I don't really want to leave my house, but let's rock.
Are you ready? 2 minutes starting now. Austin, in the NBA, who is the best team in the East?
The best team in the East right now, I don't really believe in Philadelphia because of the lack of shooting. I don't believe in Milwaukee because I've yet to see anything that would suggest that they are good. I still think the strategy of beating the Bucks is the same. Foul Giannis, wall off the paint, keep them out of there, and make other guys beat them, and they've proven that they can't show up in the clutch. So it's crazy to say, but this Brooklyn Nets team that's just been assembled not too long ago is easily the best team in the East.
All right, who's the best team in the West?
It's the Lakers, without a doubt. This will cut down my time. I don't even think I need to explain myself. When you take the biggest threat in the conference's best bench player and you put it on your bench, cover over your biggest weakness last year, which was depth, by becoming probably the deepest team in the league this year, I don't think there's any question that they're the best, and we'll see them in the finals again this year. I would be stunned.
Who is your most overrated team?
Most overrated team, I've got to say, I say it every year, it's the Portland Trailblazers. I mean, people love to talk about this team. They love to talk about their potential. They're in 5th place right now, 13-10. Damian Lillard playing great. CJ McCollum, to his credit, having a breakout year, but he's been banged up these past few weeks and out with injury / COVID protocol / whatever it is these days. But I don't believe in that team at all. I think they're always, I'm a bit of a gambler, and that's always a team I bet on to get knocked out in the first round, whether they got a home court advantage, top 4 seed or a bottom 4 seed. I don't believe in that team. I've seen them collapse at times. I've seen them not play to the level of, other teams multiple times. And, I'm sure there'll be that point post All-Star break where the media gets really high on them and Barkley starts picking them to win the championship and betting money. And, they go on a win streak like they did in the bubble last year or whatever, and people jump on the bandwagon. But that team's not for real to me, and I think they should have broken it up years ago.
All right, 30 seconds. You have 3 more questions. Can you do it?
God.
Okay, you have
Shit.
the
Don't
most.
be bear like Aaron Rodgers over here.
Okay, you have the most underrated team.
Most underrated team, Denver Nuggets. I still think they're super underrated, and they're set up for the future. Easy.
Who wins the MVP this year?
MVP, it's going to be LeBron. He's been snubbed the past couple of years. Lakers looking great. He's doing it in very few minutes. He's 36 years old. I think both the narrative, team record, and stats all kind of align. Those are the ingredients of an MVP. He's got it in the bag.
And that's your time. And
No!
I have 1 question remaining. Who wins it all? And I don't even know if I have to listen to the answer because I know what you're going to say.
I technically answered that without even knowing. I said the Lakers are a lock. Well, I guess I said they're a lock for the Western Conference, but damn, if it wasn't so cold, I would be arguing to count that. I don't even want to go get a beer. Kind of just want to curl up in my bed and eat something.
All right. Well, that was your 2-minute buzzer beaters with Austin.